Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She left the tea bag in the mug again. That's how I knew she'd stopped loving me. Not the affairs, not the silence, not the way she'd sigh when I walked into the room. No, it was the tea bag. Soaked, sagging, bitter, just like us. For 12 years, I always told her I hated that. I liked it steeped for exactly 2 minutes, no more. I'm not demanding. I just thought, you remember the small things when you care. She used to. But now, my name tasted like boredom in her mouth. That morning, she set the mug down without a word, without even looking at me. Then she picked up her phone and started smiling at it. Her thumb danced like it had somewhere better to be. I asked, half joking, "Who's that making you smile so much?" She didn't answer. She just chuckled. Not at me. Not with me. Through me. I didn't push. I never did. That was my specialty, swallowing it all down and telling myself, she's just stressed, or you're being too sensitive again, Marshall. That's my name, by the way. Marshall. But she called me Marsh. Like marshmallow. Like soft. Like forgettable. At some point I realized I was living with a woman who saw my emotions as punchlines. Once, when I cried during a movie, she whispered, "God, you're worse than my niece." When I lost my job last year, she asked if I was going to cry about it before even saying she was sorry. When my father died, she told her sister I was drowning in feelings again. And I stayed. Because when you're the kind of man who's been mocked for being gentle your whole life, you start thinking maybe that's what you deserve. Maybe love is supposed to feel like endurance. Like you're lucky someone puts up with you. But it all changed the day she made that final joke in front of people I barely knew. It was her coworker's birthday dinner. She wore a red dress I hadn't seen in years, and I made the mistake of telling her she looked beautiful. She rolled her eyes and muttered, "Save it, Marsh." Then, at the table, wine in her hand, confidence in her posture, she said, "Marshall's the kind of guy who'd apologize to a burglar for getting blood on the carpet." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But inside, something cold began to uncoil. I didn't say a word that night. Not in the car. Not when we got home. Not when she asked why I was being moody again. I just stood there, staring at her, wondering how long I'd been a walking joke in her eyes. She told me I was being dramatic. Said I was always too emotional. Said if I couldn't take a joke, maybe I wasn't a real man after all. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just picked up my jacket, walked to the door, and vanished. No note. No bag. No goodbye. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest answer a man can give. She didn't call. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even 3 days later. At first, I thought maybe her pride was holding her back. That she was waiting for me to crack, to come crawling back with some text like, "I'm sorry I overreacted." That's how our arguments usually ended, me apologizing for being hurt. But this time, I didn't flinch. I didn't go back. I stayed in a motel on the edge of town, the kind with flickering hallway lights and a vending machine that spat out lukewarm soda. It smelled like bleach and mildew. And yet, for the first time in years, I could breathe. I stared at the cracked ceiling for hours, replaying every moment from the past decade that I had brushed off. Every little cut that I told myself didn't hurt. And still, the phone stayed silent. You'd think after walking out on your wife of 12 years, she'd at least ask where you were. Check if you were alive. Nothing. I started wondering if she even noticed. That's the part that stung worse than the mockery. How effortlessly she carried on, as if I had simply dissolved into air. On day 5, curiosity overpowered my pride. I logged into our shared home security app from my phone and checked the camera feed in the hallway. There she was, laughing with someone at the front door. A man in a denim jacket. I zoomed in. He handed her a bag. Chinese takeout. She touched his arm. Smiled like she used to smile at me. The next night, he was back. Different shirt, same ease. She wore leggings and a loose hoodie. Her comfort outfit. That was our movie night attire. Except now it was their movie night, I guess. She still hadn't called me. It was like I had been erased, like she had waited for this. My absence was her green light. I felt humiliated. Discarded. But more than that, I felt stupid. Stupid for thinking my leaving would shake her. Stupid for assuming she still cared. The motel walls felt tighter with every passing night. I didn't eat much. Just microwaved soup and cold coffee. The man in the room next to me coughed constantly, and the couple above me had arguments that made the walls tremble. One night, I heard a knock. I thought maybe her. It was motel management. Wrong room. And still nothing from her. That's when I realized. I had never left a woman. I had simply removed myself from a place I was no longer seen. And somehow, she'd known I'd never have the guts to stay gone. That's what she was counting on. But this time, I wasn't coming back. Because the man she laughed at, he had nothing left to lose. And soon, I was going to return, not to beg, but to reveal what I found in the cloud account she forgot was still connected to mine. I wasn't just mocked. I was replaced long before I ever walked out. And the truth I was about to uncover would make me the one laughing. I wasn't even trying to snoop when I found it. I just wanted to save a few photos, pictures from when things still felt real between us. There was this one from Maine, a foggy morning on the lake, and I remember how she laughed at the ducks and pulled my hoodie over her face because the air was so cold. I thought maybe if I looked at that version of her again, I could understand what changed. But what I found instead made my hands go numb. She never disabled our shared cloud account. It was tied to both of our phones, automatically backing up photos and videos. She must have forgotten, or maybe she assumed I'd never look. But there they were. New photos. Recent ones. All taken after I left. The first image was innocent enough. Her smiling on the couch, wine glass in hand, wrapped in the throw blanket I'd given her for our anniversary. Then came one of her clinking glasses with that same man I saw on the doorbell camera. Next, a picture of him behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, their faces close, her head tilted back in laughter like she hadn't done with me in years. Then I saw the video clips. One was of them dancing, poorly, but freely, in the living room. My living room. Our rug. Our furniture. He stepped on her foot and she shrieked, giggled, then kissed him so casually it made my stomach twist. The next clip was worse. She was sitting in my chair, looking right into the camera, recording a voice message. God, you're so much more fun than Marshall. I can finally breathe around you. That one line. Over and over in my head. I sat there in that filthy motel room, clutching my phone like it might explode. All the years I spent trying to be patient. All the times I stayed quiet so she could vent. Every little thing I did to keep the peace, thinking I was being strong. She saw it as suffocation. Boring. Disposable. I closed the app, sat on the bed, then opened it again, almost punishing myself, like I needed to feel it to believe it. I went deeper. The files dated back months. They didn't start after I left. They started long before. There was a folder named For Me Only. It wasn't locked. I opened it and felt something twist in my chest. There were screenshots of our texts, messages I had sent, trying to comfort her, trying to cheer her up after a long day. Even little poems I had written, ones she had pretended to appreciate. She had annotated them, added captions, mocking captions. Look at this cringe. Face with rolling eyes. Who even talks like this? This is what I have to come home to. She had sent those to him, laughing at me behind my back. Suddenly, every moment of silence in our house, every cold shoulder, every, I'm just tired, it all made sense. I wasn't her partner. I was her emotional punching bag, her court jester, the soft man she kept around to laugh at in private. I felt sick. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But I didn't. Instead, I saved every file, every photo, every message. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with them yet, but I knew this much. I wasn't the weak one. She was. Too weak to end things properly. Too weak to be honest. Too weak to admit that what she really wanted was someone else. But she wasn't going to get away with rewriting the story, because I was done being the joke, and I was about to show her just how much the quiet ones remember. I didn't go back to the house right away. Not because I was afraid, at least not in the usual way, but because I needed to understand what I had become to her. Was I just a placeholder? Some pitiful default option until someone more exciting came along? Or worse, had I always been invisible? The photos, the captions, the videos, they played in my head every time I blinked. Each word she mocked, each message she twisted. But the part that tore at me most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how comfortable she looked while betraying me. Like she had been doing it for years, and only now felt free to stop pretending. That was the part one couldn't shake. I had to see her face. Not through a camera. Not in screenshots. I needed to look her in the eye and confirm what I already knew. That she had no remorse. That her laughter was genuine. That I, Marshall, had been nothing more than background noise in her world. So I made a reservation. Not at a fancy place. Delaney didn't do over the top. I chose a cozy Italian spot she used to love. I texted her, dinner at 7. Just talk. No accusations. No tone. Just one last chance for her to show some trace of a soul. She responded within 5 minutes. Fine. She showed up in that same red dress from the party. Not for me. I could tell. She wore it like a message. A power play. She sat down without a smile, like she was doing me a favor by being there. I studied her face, trying to find traces of the woman I married. But it felt like I was staring at a well-crafted mask. Even her eyes looked different, colder, sharper. We ordered. She made small talk. Asked if I was still doing the motel thing. I nodded. She made a face like that was somehow pathetic. Then she leaned in and said, "So, what did you want to talk about? I assume this isn't a romantic dinner." I told her I knew. About him. About everything. Her face didn't change. No shock. No panic. Just a slight shrug. "Oh, that. That," I repeated, stunned. "That's all you have to say?" "Well, what do you want me to say, Marshall?" she snapped, suddenly defensive. "You left. You disappeared. That's on you." "You laughed at me," I said quietly. "Mocked me. Sent my messages to him like I was a joke." She sighed, then smiled, actually smiled. "You always took everything so seriously. You were so needy. It was exhausting." That was it. The full truth. No remorse. No shame. Just raw, bitter honesty. "I gave you everything," I said. "My time, my support, my love. And I didn't ask for it," she cut in. "You gave it because you needed to feel useful. That's not love, Marshall. That's dependency." I sat there, stunned. Not because of what she said, but because I realized how long she had felt this way. How many years she spent building that resentment in silence. And how long I had mistaken quiet endurance for love. I didn't touch my food. Neither did she. When the bill came, I paid it. She didn't say thank you. She just stood, grabbed her purse, and said, "You should really try to move on. This pity party is getting old." And with that, she walked out. That's when I knew this wasn't the end of the story. Not for me. Because the thing about soft men like me, when we finally stop waiting, we become very hard to forget. After that dinner, I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't go back to the house either. I drove for hours with no destination, just headlights and silence, letting her words spin around in my head like nails in a blender. "You should really try to move on." That smug, dismissive tone. Like I was some clingy afterthought from a life she'd already erased. And maybe I was, but that didn't mean I was done. Not yet. It wasn't revenge I wanted. I wasn't going to do anything reckless or cruel. That's not who I am. But I was going to tell my side. Because for the first time in our entire marriage, I stopped caring what she thought. The man she mocked, the emotional one, the too soft one, he was still here. Still standing. And ready to be heard. I rented a small studio downtown. Nothing fancy, just a room with peeling paint and creaky floorboards. But it was mine. Quiet. Clean. Peaceful. I didn't tell her where I was. I let her believe I was still holed up in some sad motel room, wallowing. Let her think I was broken, that I'd eventually come crawling back. Meanwhile, I started documenting everything. I went through our old emails, her social media, and every file in that cloud account she forgot about. I collected dates, names, screenshots. I even found a few messages she'd sent to friends, group chats where she ranted about how I was too emotional to cheat on, how I wouldn't leave even if she set the house on fire. One of them replied, "Men like that are built to be stepped on." They laughed. She laughed. And yet, I had held on for years, thinking I was the problem. At night, I started journaling. Not for therapy. Not for closure. For clarity. I wanted to remember every moment I ignored, every red flag I explained away. It was strange. Writing it all out made me feel lighter. Not healed, but clear-headed for the first time in years. And with that clarity came a strange sense of power. I didn't post anything online. Not yet. But I did write a letter. One she'd never expect. I mailed it to her work address, so she couldn't pretend she didn't get it. In it, I told her the truth. That I saw the photos. That I heard the recordings. That I knew about the texts. But most of all, I told her what it felt like to love someone who treated me like a shadow. I didn't curse. I didn't accuse. I simply laid it out. Every insult, every moment of emotional cruelty, every betrayal. And at the end, I wrote, "You didn't break me. You freed me." 3 days later, I got a call. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. "Can we talk? Why would you do this? I didn't think you'd actually walk away." I left them unread. Because here's the thing. People like her only notice you're gone when there's no one left to mock. They don't miss you. They miss the control. But I was no longer hers to control. And soon, the entire picture would start unraveling for her, publicly. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because some truths can't stay buried forever. And hers was about to resurface in the most unexpected way. It started with a voicemail, one she didn't know she left. I hadn't blocked Delaney's number, but I never answered her calls. I just let them ring until they cut off, never giving her the satisfaction of my voice. One afternoon, while I was sorting through boxes at the studio, I noticed she'd called again. But this time, there was a voicemail. I didn't care to listen, but for some reason, I tapped play. What I heard wasn't meant for me. I could hear her pacing. Footsteps across hardwood, the clatter of keys, her voice sharp and frantic. He knows. He knows, Chelsea. I don't know how, but he found everything. He sent me this letter, and it's like he saw us. All of it. The photos, the messages. I feel like I'm being watched. A pause. Then, quieter. I thought he'd just fall apart. I thought he'd cry or beg or something. But he didn't. He just disappeared. Another pause. A long one. And then came the part that made my jaw clench. I think I screwed this up. Not just with the other guy. I mean everything. Marshall wasn't bad. He was just too much. Too soft. Too emotional. I thought that meant weak. But maybe not. Maybe I pushed the wrong person too far. Click. I didn't even know how to process that. For so long, I had begged for scraps of kindness. For years, I had wondered if I was the problem, if being sensitive somehow made me unworthy. But hearing her voice crack, hearing her doubt herself for once, it lit something inside me I hadn't felt in years. She was unraveling. Not because I screamed or broke anything, but because I left without giving her the ending she expected. I didn't let her make me the villain. I just vanished. And in the vacuum I left, the truth finally started echoing. The next week, I learned through a mutual friend, Travis, a guy from her office who once called me a walking cardigan, that her new boyfriend wasn't sticking around. Apparently, he wasn't into drama, and after things got weird between them, he cut her off. Ghosted. She showed up at his place once, and he refused to answer the door. That was 3 days after I mailed the letter. I'll be honest, I didn't feel sorry for her. She had spent years slowly chipping away at me, publicly, privately, behind my back. And now, the reality she built on mockery and manipulation was turning to ash. But I wasn't done. I reached out to a lawyer. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed to close the book the right way. Clean split. No backdoors. I was still legally tied to her, and I needed that to end. The lawyer asked me why I hadn't filed sooner, and I told him the truth. I was waiting for her to be the one who left. I didn't want to be blamed. He just smiled and said, "She already blamed you for everything. Might as well give her a reason." So I started the process. And then, one evening, as I sat watching the rain blur the windows of my tiny studio, I received an email. No subject line. Just one sentence in the body. "Are you really going to throw away 12 years?" I stared at it for a long time. Not because I doubted my decision, but because it confirmed what I always feared. She never saw me. Just the time I gave her. The service. The convenience. She thought I was a possession. But now, that possession was slipping from her grip. And she wasn't ready for what would happen next. The subject line of her next email read, "Dinner?" Just that. No explanation. No apology. No acknowledgement of everything she'd done. It felt like she was testing the waters, as if I might just sweep the last 12 years under the rug and pretend none of it happened. As if all the humiliation, the cheating, the emotional manipulation could be undone with a shared plate of pasta and awkward conversation. I didn't reply. The next day, she showed up at the studio. I was standing near the window, sipping instant coffee and reading through the divorce paperwork when I saw her car pull up. My chest tightened. She had never come here. I hadn't told her where it was, so she must have asked someone, or tracked it down some other way. I almost didn't open the door, but I didn't want to give her that satisfaction, the idea that I was afraid of her. So I let her in. She was dressed like someone trying to appear casual but calculated. Oversized sweater, no makeup, like she wanted to look vulnerable, approachable. "Marshall," she said softly, her voice dripping with false regret. "Can we talk?" "You've been talking," I said flatly. "For years. I'm just now listening." She stepped in anyway, like she owned the space. Walked slowly, eyes scanning the room, judging it. It's small, she murmured. It's mine. That shut her up for a second. She finally sat on the edge of the old love seat I dragged in from a thrift store, looking nervous, but not the kind of nervous you feel when you're sorry. It was the kind you get when your game isn't working the way it used to. I made mistakes, she said. I think we both did. I didn't respond. I just watched her. I was angry for a long time, she continued. You know that. You stopped trying. You got comfortable. I laughed once quietly. Comfortable? You mean boring. That's the word you used in your messages. Boring. Pathetic. Soft. She shifted. You weren't supposed to see those. No, I said. I wasn't. There was silence. And then she leaned forward. I don't want to throw away our history, Marshall. You were always good to me. We just lost something along the way. I could see the performance in her eyes. The way she measured every word. She wasn't here because she loved me. She was here because she lost control. Her boyfriend ghosted her. Her friends were distancing themselves. And I, the man she thought would always be waiting, was finally gone. Let me ask you something, I said, setting the papers aside. If I hadn't left that night, if I had just stayed and let it go like I always did, would you still be with him right now? She looked away. That was all the answer I needed. I stood. I'm not the man you left, Delaney. I'm the man who walked away. And you're not the woman I married. You're the woman who laughed while I cried. Her eyes narrowed. So this is it. You're just going to throw everything away? No, I said. You already did. I'm just finally accepting it. She left without another word. As the door clicked shut, I sat back down, heart pounding but steady. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt clean, like the weight had finally lifted. Like I had finally stood up, not for revenge, but for myself. But I knew that wasn't the end. Because people like Delaney don't walk away quietly. And her next move would come when I least expected it. 2 weeks passed. No more emails. No more surprise visits. No cryptic texts or accidental voicemails. It was like she'd finally accepted that I wasn't coming back. I thought maybe she'd lash out, try to destroy what was left of my reputation, or twist the story like she always had, but she didn't. And that silence felt like the first real gift she ever gave me. The divorce finalized faster than I expected. No resistance. No drawn-out courtroom drama. She signed everything without argument. I think she knew she'd already lost the part that mattered, the hold she had on me. I moved into a small apartment above a used bookstore. Quiet street. Warm light through the windows in the morning. The landlord gave me a discount for helping fix the leaky pipes and rewiring the porch light. I didn't tell anyone, but I started writing again. Nothing fancy, just short thoughts, memories, reflections. For once, it wasn't about escaping. It was about understanding. And one afternoon, while reorganizing a dusty shelf in the bookstore, I met someone. Her name's Riley. She asked me where the true crime section was and ended up staying for coffee in the shop's back corner. We didn't talk about exes or broken hearts. We talked about weird books, bad coffee, and what it means to start over when your idea of love has been shattered. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't laugh when I got emotional telling her why I hate tea bags left in the cup. She just listened. It was strange, feeling seen. And for once, I didn't feel like a man trying to prove his worth. I just felt like myself. Soft, yes. Emotional, absolutely. But whole. And enough. Delaney's shadow doesn't follow me anymore. Not because I fought her, or exposed her, or tried to make her hurt the way I did, but because I chose peace over war. I chose to walk away instead of scream. To rebuild instead of destroy. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a man who got laughed at. I see a man who survived. Who grew. Not because he stopped being soft, but because he finally realized softness isn't weakness. It's strength the world just doesn't understand yet. If you've made it this far, I want to know. What part of Marshall's journey hit you the hardest? Was it the dinner confrontation? The voicemail? That final goodbye? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more stories like this, where even the quietest voices get the last word.